And we're live.
With Paranormal Spirits, place to come to get our booze on. We talk about the booze, the things that go bump in the night. And I get to do that with all my booze. I'm Mike Black. To my left, my beautiful, lovely, and delicious wife, Alyssa.
Hello.
Sitting across from me, the lovely and talented John Burkett.
Hello.
I love this. Hello.
What language are we doing today? We don't know.
Well,
I don't know what we're talking about. So.
It's funny you should bring that up because
France?
the story tonight spans a lot of the known world at that time.
So Esperanto.
So what would you say if I told you there was a man, and we have records, okay? We have records, we have registers, we have personal journals, personal letters, authors of the time recounting meeting him, Voltaire, the philosopher, Mesmer.
The mesmerizer?
Yes, the father of hypnosis, kings and queens from multiple countries, you name it. All these people know this guy, right?
They're involved.
All over the world, dating back as far as the 1600s, and as recent as the 1980s. This man has always appeared to be in his 40s or 50s, well-built, suave, super talented, educated. John thought we were talking about him.
Yeah.
Could this guy be immortal?
Sounds like
Time traveler?
vampire.
One answer be maybe much more sinister than what you think. And you'll find out.
Like Blade.
The Daywalker.
And maybe, I don't know.
It's open season on all suckheads.
Before we bring you this story,
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
it's one of the greatest sayings, man. Oh, that is such a cool show.
It is.
But the music at the first of it is what I think I like the best. That
Yeah, I'll be interested to see the new one with Mahershala Ali in the role. Yeah,
she playing Blade now.
He.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But I mean,
He played was it Cottonmouth or whatever in that Marvel series on Netflix. Luke Cage.
Luke Cage.
Yeah. He was in Luke Cage, but yeah,
Okay.
he's the new Blade.
Gotcha.
is Blade technically a Marvel person?
Yes.
See, I didn't know that. I just like Wesley.
I know.
We're on a first name basis.
Are you?
We
You
are.
and Wesley?
Me and Wesley. And me and Shamar.
Well, before we get into our story, let's talk about all the places that you can find us.
Idris.
And you can find us at 3B Paranormal Spirits. If you're listening on a podcast, you can come to 3B Paranormal Spirits and see our YouTubes and see that I'm actually wearing a bikini. John and Alyssa are just in thongs.
Oh, we are?
Yeah.
Where do we find that picture?
Yeah, you gotta pay the extra to get that. But that's our YouTube channel. If you go to Instagram, TikTok, X, we have pages there, and that's paranormal _ spelled out _spirits, just like that right there. And you can look us up there and see our shorts and stuff like that we do, and we put out for YouTube as well. Then you can go to our website that we have, and that's paranormal-spirits.com. If you go there, that's a landing page. You can get to our Facebook group, which is Booze with Benefits, BOOS. You can get to our Boozy's Boutique, which is a store for all of our swag stuff, like our boozy cups and boozy koozies and stuff like that. So, moving on, let's talk about the BOOZE. John, what are you drinking tonight?
All right. This is Matthew McConaughey's
Oh, yeah.
Tequila Pantalones.
I forgot. That's his. All right. Isn't that from like what movie is that from?
Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, where he's the old guy at the party.
Yeah, he was like, no matter how old, I was thinking a little about high school girls. No matter how old I get, they stay the same age.
And there's nothing cringy about that, is there at all?
In the early 90s, No, but now it's like
Yeah.
it didn't age well.
No, it did not. Alyssa, what are you drinking?
G4. Sorry, I was
Mid-drink?
appreciating it. Yes,
You were imbibing at the moment?
I was, and it was so tasty. Yes.
You know, I guess we're all doing tequila tonight.
Which is crazy because usually I'm, about some scotch.
We have been drinking scotch, and I've been on a bourbon kick here lately, but I am drinking my absolute favorite tequila, and that's Tequila Ocho.
Oh, you know what the other thing in that movie that cracked me was,
What's that?
y'all got any weed? Be a lot cooler if you did. That's classic. Had Ben Affleck in it, very unknown Ben Affleck.
Right. So, I teased you with the story, and this thing goes way, way back. And so imagine that you've met this person, and they have flawless skin that never seems to age, eyes that pierce into your soul. They're never hungry, but they're powerfully charming, peculiar a little bit. They draw you into their fascinating stories with their hypnotic voice, and they speak in a way you've never heard before.
What does that mean?
You've never heard anybody talk like that before. Their eyes lock you in, and they speak of events that are hundreds of years prior with such detail you could swear that they were actually there right then. So, in the song Sympathy for the Devil, the Rolling Stones allude to something very similar to this story, and it says, "Please allow me to introduce myself. I'm a man of wealth and taste. I've been around for a long, long years, stolen many a man's soul and faith. I was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain, made damn sure Pilate washed his hands and sealed his fate. Pleased to meet you. Hope you guess my name." But what's puzzling you is the nature of my game. Now, they alluded to the fact that this was the devil that had been in all these places, but...
I mean, that's the name of the song, Sympathy for the Devil.
But hear me out here. So there was a man, he was known as Count of Saint Germain, or Comte de Saint-Germain, or de Wundermann in German.
The Wonder Man?
The Wonder Man, or Jacques Saint Germain.
Jack?
Or Jack, yeah.
Jack.
Jacques Saint Germain. The Count of Saint Germain never aged, took on alternate identities throughout the years. Some considered him a prophet. Some considered him a charlatan, a healer, a spy, a visionary, all these things. Well, in 1783, Nicholas Thomas created an engraving, one of only two known images of the Count of Saint Germain, and it was based on a lost painting owned by the Marquis d'Urf. I swear to God, that's her name. The birth date of the Count of Saint Germain is unknown, but it is speculated to be around the 1690s. Several have speculated that he was born as the son of Francis Rákóczi II, who was the Prince of Transylvania. Or he could have been the illegitimate son of Maria Anna of Pfalz-Neuburg, widow of Charles II of Spain, or even the son of the King of Portugal, John V. And all of these crazy rumors about how long he's actually been around. It is said that he was around at the time of Christ and even attended the wedding at Cana where Jesus turned the water into wine.
Not if he was born in 1691, he didn't.
Right, but they think that there are people that believe that he has been around for a long, long time, more than that. There are so many different conflicting anecdotes and legendary accounts, it's impossible to actually tell and nail down the Count's birth, his life even, and death. So he's a true living mystery. The Count of Saint Germain, was widely believed to be skilled in alchemy. And alchemy, as it was understood at that time, was aimed at transforming metals into gold and achieving immortality through projection powder, or the philosopher's stone. And it's this philosopher's stone is actually a powder. Yeah.
Interesting.
So he has been linked to several secret societies, including the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, Society of Asiatic Brothers, the Knights of Light, the Illuminati, and the Order of Templars. In 1742, the Count arrives in Versailles. After allegedly spending 5 years in the Shah of Persia's court, and he impresses the royals and the elites with all this knowledge he has of astronomy, philosophy, chemistry, alchemy. He speaks several languages fluently, including French, German, Dutch, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, and English. He also, although not fluent, has a basic understanding of Chinese, Latin, Arabic, ancient Greek, Sanskrit, and a few other little languages.
Probably Farsi too, if he.
Man, this dude. I mean, they say if you speak more than just a few languages that you're genius level, and this guy is like, bam, he's got them all. He was also very talented. He was an accomplished painter, could play the violin like a virtuoso, was ambidextrous, and allegedly able to simultaneously compose a letter with one hand, he'd write it out, and write poetry with the other at the same time. So
that's crazy,
isn't it? So
I can't even do the pat.
I know, and
thing.
all this stuff sounds extremely fantastical because I'm just giving you these things that are said about him. But later on throughout the story that I'm going to tell you, you get the actual people speaking about him who were there at the time and saw him. And I mean, not just anybody, but, members of the court. The Count was believed to be very wealthy beyond dreams, despite having no record of a bank account. He also set up elaborate laboratories during his travels, and he claimed he could change small diamonds and pearls into larger ones that would adorn his clothes, even his shoes. So he would take these diamonds and grow them larger. The Count dined regularly with friends, but never ate in public. Remember who they said his dad was? Prince of Transylvania?
I'm telling you, he's a vampire.
You think he is? All right.
Well, that guy's a Hungarian, actually, but
who is?
His dad.
Coxie?
I think it's Rikashi. I don't know. Yeah. But, boy, he was ugly at that painting.
He's got the big mustache going on. So the Count, anyone who met him had the pleasure of seeing what a truly remarkable man he was. So in other words, if this dude was in the room, you didn't have a chance with any of the women there because he could do it all. But it was one anecdote from the year 1760 that seemingly gave rise to the idea that he was actually immortal. So that year, the Count was in Paris when an elderly woman named Countess von Georgi heard that he would be attending a soiree at the home of Madame de Pompadour, the mistress of King Louis XV of France.
She's the lady who invented that 50s hairstyle.
I'm sure she
used
did.
To wear a pompadour.
Yeah. So the old Countess was intrigued by the news because she had personally known Count Saint Germain while she was in Venice in 1710. Now, remember the date? We are at 1760, so this is 50 years later. When she met the Count for a second time, she was astonished to find that he looked as if he hadn't aged a day. Naturally, she asked, hey, what's up with this? She asked if perhaps his father had lived in Venice and he went by the same name. To this, the Count simply replied, no, madam, but I myself was living in Venice at the end of the last and the beginning of this century. I had the honor to pay you court then. Totally perplexed, the Countess declared that this would be impossible, stating the Count de Saint Germain I knew in those days was at least 45 years, and you, sir, at the outside are that age at present.
Vampire.
Maybe she's just confused, right? Okay, but there are recorded accounts of the Count being of a similar age in Venice at that time. Author Karl Heinrich von Gleichen, yeah, I swear to God, wrote this book, Souvenirs de Charles Henri, Baron de Gleichen, published in 1868. I have heard Rameau, an old relative of the French ambassador at Venice, testify to having known Saint Germain in 1710 when he had the appearance of a man aged 50 years. So there was a guy in Venice
Who looked like he was 50.
who he knew as Saint Germain, who looked like he was 50 years old in 1710. Now here it is, 1760, and they're saying, hey, this is the same guy, right? The count is said to have been seemingly unbothered by the countess's discovery, simply telling her, Madam, I am very old, with a knowing smile. Count Saint Germain traveled extensively through Europe in the 18th century. 1740s. During the 1740s, he became a trusted diplomat in the court of King Louis XV of France, carrying out secret missions for him in England. In 1743, Saint Germain is mentioned in a letter of Horace Walpole's. Now, Horace was an author, and he was also a member of Parliament. Walpole writes...
Not enough people named Horace anymore. There's some names we need to bring
I know,
back,
you
like
know.
Horace,
No, let's not bring that one back.
Hortense for women. You know,
Everybody out there
No.
fixing to have a little boy, let's name him Horace.
No, let's don't.
Aethelwolf.
You're right. So in 1743, Walpole writes of Saint Germain being arrested as a Jacobite spy and finally released. So he writes, the provost of Edinburgh is in custody of a messenger, and the other day they seized this odd man who goes by the name of Count Saint Germain. He has been there 2 years and will not tell who he is or whence he but professes he does not go by his right name. He sings, plays on the violin wonderfully, composes, is mad and not very sensible. He is called an Italian, a Spaniard, a Pole, and somebody that married a great fortune in Mexico and ran away with her jewels to Constantinople. A priest, a fiddler, and a vast nobleman. This guy is saying, hey, you know, I know about this when he was there at that time. So it's validating. I just totally made that word up. He's validating. Sorry. That's really good tequila. So he's validating the fact that he was there at that time and on secret missions for King Louis. So in 1760, after having interfered with a dispute between Austria and France, he was compelled in June 1760, owing to the hostility of the Duc de Choiseul, to be removed to England, and it appears to have resided there for 2 years. In 1762, he was in St. Petersburg, Russia. John, you're the history buff. What was he doing there in 1762? I'll give you a hint.
I don't know. Court of Peter the Great, I guess.
Yeah, here we go. So
That's the right time period. Yeah, Peter.
He is said to have been complicit in the conspiracy that placed Catherine the Great on the throne. So Catherine the Great, also known as Catherine II, became Empress of Russia on July 9th, 1762, after overthrowing her husband, the Tsar Peter III, in a coup d'etat. Catherine rallied the troops of St. Petersburg to support her on June 28, 1762, and had herself proclaimed Empress and autocrat in the Kazan Cathedral.
Kazan.
She also invented the cigar ring. You know how cigars have rings? It's because she had those made because she liked to smoke cigars but didn't like to get the tobacco stuff on her fingers. So she had
them sheathed for her.
That is the
Why there's a cigar
origin
ring.
of cigar rings. Is
Wow.
Catherine.
I did not know that.
Interesting.
And now for the rest of the story. So Peter III abdicated and was assassinated 8 days later. Catherine was then crowned in Moscow and ruled for 34 years until her death in 1796. So a year later, in 1763, while on a diplomatic mission in the Hague, Netherlands.
The Hague?
Yeah. The Hague, Netherlands. He meets the famous lover, Giacomo Casanova. Casanova wrote, This extraordinary man would say in an easy, assured manner that he was 300 years old and that he knew the secret of universal medicine, that he possessed a mastery over nature, and that he could melt diamonds. All this, he said, was a mere trifle to him. So here's where he's met Casanova. Casanova writes about meeting him. So the guy legitimately, in 1763, he was here. And we know that we assume that he was born in 1690, according to the records that they can find. So this guy's just ticking along and not slowing down at all. So in 1774, he returned to France during the reign of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, and actually acted as her advisor. Now that's a great story, except we can back it up because the Count had warned her of the future revolution that was coming, and that didn't happen until 15 years later. So Marie Antoinette was obsessed with maintaining her appearance of youth and beauty, so she naturally gravitates towards the Count because he's able to hold off the years and maintain his youthful appearance, or at least 40s, 50s. And maybe that's when he found out, or he became able to hold it off and, couldn't reverse it, but at least hold it steady right there. So we know that the Count stay at the French royal court. We know about that thanks to the translated passages from a rare book in 1821 called Souvenirs de Marie Antoinette, which was written by the Countess de Adhemar, an intimate friend of the Queen. She names Saint Germain multiple times and writes, "He appeared at the court of France long before me. It was 1743, but whence did he come? That is what no one else has ever been able to learn." She describes the Count as being about 40, 50 years old, while his countenance, haughty, intellectual, acute, and struck one at first sight.
Struck one
At first sight. I don't know what that means. He's handsome, or he just comes off as somebody you want to know, or how that works. But
interesting.
I don't know. In 1779, the Count of Saint Germain travels to Hamburg and befriends Prince Charles of Hesse-Kassel by impressing him with the gem collection and claims of inventing a new way of coloring cloth. Prince Charles is enamored with him, just loves this guy to death. He outfits a laboratory in Leyland where the Count collaborates in alchemical experiments and jewelry making. He has an abandoned factory that he, being Prince Charles, has an abandoned factory on one of his estates, and he allows the Count to live in this factory and do his alchemy while he's there until his death on February 27th, 1784. He is buried in a private grave on March the 2nd of 1784. The Count's death is recorded in the register of St. Nikolai Church in Eckernford by, that's close as I can get it, by the residing priest. Now, some suggest that this entry of his death was made at the point of a dagger.
Interesting.
So the remaining effects of the Count were auctioned off on April 3rd the same year. And the reason that they know all these things is because they have records of it in the church. If it was not weird enough up to this point, hang tight. Francois-Marie I'm going to mess this up. Francois-Marie Arouet, also known as Voltaire, the renowned philosopher. Voltaire describes Saint Germain as a man who never dies and who knows everything. After his death,
Interesting.
After his death, the Count was reportedly seen in Germany in 1785 with Anton Mesmer. According to the Secret Teachings of All Ages, the Mysteries and Their Emissaries by Manly Hall, it was Comte de Saint Germain who possessed an uncanny knowledge of every knowledge of the preceding 2,000 years, who assisted Mesmer in developing the theory of mesmerism. Mesmer told Saint Germain that he did not understand the higher power of magnetism at this point, and Saint Germain explained that it was his duty to explain it to him. So from this day on, Mesmer's methodology changed. Before, he was using the magnet itself to bring about cures, and from this day forward, he used what was called vital transmission.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either. But I do know that he was the one that came up with mesmerizing someone or hypnosis. So he was the father of that.
They named it after him.
Mm-hmm. Mesmerized?
Mm-hmm. In 1785, according to Comte de Saint-Germain by Isabel Cooper Oakley, in 1912, Comte de Saint-Germain represented Freemasonry at a convention in Paris in 1785. In modern Freemason literature, there has been a considerable effort made to eliminate his name. However, careful research into the Masonic archives proves this to be untrue, and this is all coming from her book. Indeed, the exact contrary can be shown, for Saint Germain was one of the selected representatives of the French Masons at the Great Convention at Paris in 1785. So they're trying to get rid of it and kind of expunge his name from the records. And if the people that dug down into it have actually found it. So the Countess d'Adhémar even writes of seeing the Count multiple times more in France. Now, remember, Countess d'Adhémar was the friend of Marie Antoinette. So she said that she had seen him several times, including an appearance at Marie Antoinette's execution in 1793. In her book, she writes, "I saw Saint Germain again, and always to my unspeakable surprise at the assassination of the Queen. The Countess also claims to have seen Count 5 times more, totally unaged. The final time was on the eve of the murder of Duc de Berry in 1820, just 2 years before she herself died in 1822. So on February 13, 1820, the Duc de Berry was stabbed and mortally wounded when leaving the Opera House in Paris with his wife, and died the next day. The assassin was a saddle maker named Louis Paris Louvel, a Bonapartist opposed to the monarchy. But these aren't the only significant historical events. So the Count assumed new identities as Major Fraser towards the end of Louis Philippe's reign in 1820, displaying the similar characteristics of the Count of Saint-Germain. Major Fraser disappears after astonishing the Parisian court with his knowledge of historical connections, leaving behind mysteries similar to those surrounding the Count Saint-Germain. He publishes an account of his journey into the Himalayas and is speculated to be the same person as the Major Fraser that wrote the account, further blurring the lines between identity and legend. In 1820, Englishman Albert Vandam wrote in his memoirs, An Englishman in Paris, of a mysterious man he knew towards the end of Louis Philippe's reign and whose life bore a curious resemblance to the Count of Saint-Germain. He called himself, to guess, Major Fraser. He lived alone, never alluded to family. Moreover, he was lavish with money. Though the source of his fortune remained a mystery to everyone, he possessed marvelous knowledge of all the countries in Europe at all periods. Vandam goes on to write, like Saint-Germain, Major Fraser had the appearance of a man between 40 and 50 years old, middle height, strongly built. Major Fraser astonished the Parisian court, much like the court had been years earlier, claiming to have personally known a whole host of historical figures, from Emperor Nero to Dante, but then he disappears without a trace.
Into the inferno. Just kidding.
Dante Caligari.
So this guy he flies off the face of the map, except the Count had confided in his friend Franz Graefer, revealing plans to disappear from Europe at the end of the century and journey to the Himalayas. By the end of the century, as recorded in Graefer's book, Klein Wein Memorien from 1843, Major James Fraser, who in 1820 published an account of his journey in the Himalayas, where he had reached Gangotri, the source of the most sacred river, and bathed in the source of the Jumna River. Now we're going to move over to Russia for a little bit again.
What's Major Fraser? What's the first name?
James. Major James Fraser.
Jimmy Fraser.
Sure. If you're on a first name basis with him, I guess. Helena Blavatsky was a Russian philosopher and an author who co-founded the Theosophical Society in 1875. She gained an international following as a leader of theoretician of theosophy, which was considered an occult movement, focusing on spiritual reality and direct contact with it. So she claims between 1880 and 1900 that the Count of Saint Germain is still alive and working towards spiritual development of the West. A photograph was taken, and I'll make sure that I put that up for you guys, in Adyar, India, purportedly shows Blavatsky with Lord Kuthumi, Lord Moria, and Lord Saint Germain, supporting the claims of her acquaintance with the Count. Here comes twist number 2. Late 1800s, early 1900, a ship enters the port in New Orleans, arriving from France. A man gets off the boat. This man was extremely wealthy and would throw lavish parties at his home in the French Quarter. 701 Royal Street. He rubbed elbows and hobnobbed with the elite, rich and powerful. He would sip on his red wine and entertain guests with his vast talent and knowledge in musical instruments. It is said he would pick up any instrument, and within a few minutes he was able to play it as if he had practiced it his whole life. Party guests have said that there would be endless food there and drink and at these parties, but none of these guests could recall seeing Jacques Saint Germain eat the food.
Of course not.
Of course not. Since the liquor and wine were flowing, no one seemed to mind. And these parties would continue for a few years. Until one evening in 1903. So one night, 2 men come knocking at the door. They were friends of his and wanted him to come hang out at the casinos with them. And Jacques was one that always, how'd they express it, spread the wealth. He would spend a lot of money at the tables and hook his buddies up with cash, you know. And so anyway, he told them that he was indisposed at the moment and he couldn't come with them. They should come back tomorrow. Well, later that night, a woman is heard screaming and running back and forth on the balcony above the front door at 701 Royal Street, screaming that she is being attacked and that Jacques was trying to bite her neck. She fell from the second-story balcony, and all of this was corroborated by the witnesses to the police by a man and woman that lived across the street from Saint Germain. The woman was severely injured from the fall. She had cracked her skull, broke a couple of other bones, arms and legs, and that kind of stuff. She was bleeding profusely. So the police show up, and she tells her story to the police when they get to the scene. The woman was a lady of the night and not well respected. So her testimony then, therefore, held little weight with the officers. And she was sent away to the hospital where she later died. The officers questioned Jacques, but he told them he would not mind cooperating in the morning when his head was a little clearer, as he had had one too many drinks. So the police agree to allow Jacques to meet them at the station in the morning to collect his testimony. But you know,
that white privilege.
That has nothing to do with being white. That has to do with this, because this guy was basically running a brothel in New Orleans, and he was hobnobbing with all the bigwigs, the mayor and the chief police, etc. And all these guys had been to his house for that purpose. So he knew these cops probably, if that was their beat, It's very likely he did.
And
he had money.
New Orleans Police Department
is known for being
notoriously.
I'm sure they've cleaned it up now. I'm sure
allegedly,
it's nothing like it.
I've heard they've allegedly cleaned it up, the department. But
I wouldn't venture a guess. I'm going to assume that it's a upstanding establishment or upstanding
organization.
Well,
it used to be one of the most corrupt in the country.
Yes, it was. So the next day comes, and Jacques did not show up to the station as promised. Imagine that. So the police went to his home to discover the door was unlocked, completely emptied house. This baffled the cops, and they noticed that the only things left behind were a couple of bottles of Jacques' special red wine that he drank at every party, never allowing anyone else to have some. One officer opened a bottle, took a sip, and began to gag and vomit as the bottle smashed to the floor into a million pieces. Jacques had been drinking a combination of absinthe and guess what?
Blood.
Human blood. To keep, and they say it keeps the blood from. What's the matter, Alyssa?
Gross.
Is that gross? To keep the blood from coagulating.
It's a little irony.
Yeah.
A little Ferris taste to it.
Well, blood's gross.
Tell me
absinthe.
about this,
I bet it had some legs, though.
It had a wonderful bouquet.
Gross.
Or it came from the legs.
Gross.
Jacques was never seen or heard from again, and this story is still one of the great mysteries of intrigue. But there's one last twist. The most recent appearance of the Count of Saint Germain was in 1972 in Paris, where a man named Richard Chanfray announced he was the legendary Count. Chanfray was a public figure, performed magic at a Parisian theater, and was announced as a man who could change lead into gold. He quickly became rich and famous through his exploits, giving divination, psychic readings to various celebrities, making a name for himself, and like the Count Chanfray, attributed his superhuman abilities to the art of alchemy. In fact, he even appeared on French television to prove his claim by turning lead into gold on a camp stove in front of the camera. This was a live performance, by the way. In the demonstration, he dips the end of some lead wire into projection powder, a.k.a. the Philosopher's Stone, and returns it to the crucible to be heated. Once heated, it is removed from the stove and cooled by dropping it in water. Chanfray then opens the crucible and presents the wire, which is now turned a vibrant yellow, declaring that it had been turned to gold.
Somebody test that?
Following the demonstration, the metal was allegedly appraised by experts and found to be gold. The lead wire had been provided by the TV crew, while Chanfray brought the crucible as well as the Philosopher's Stone. In addition to, they observed the process firsthand. The crew claimed to have examined all the equipment and concluded that no special effects had been used. Now, Richard Chanfray passed away in 1983. Or did he? This guy is everywhere. I mean, he just goes on and on and on.
It says there's a mention of him, an interesting biographical sketch found in the History of Magic by Eliphas Levi, which Eliphas Levi was kind of a father of ritual magic and occult, and it was a big influence on Aleister Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of weird that Eliphas Levi, who is in those circles, is considered, a great magician.
Mm-hmm. And he mentions Saint Germain.
Mentions him in his own book, The History of Magic.
Dude, you can read and read and read. There was one that I didn't bring up, but it's I can't remember the guy's name now, but Caliphyllus, something like that.
Expialidocious.
Yeah. No, it's
Calabasas.
it was the Jew that mocked Jesus as he went by on his way to the crucifixion with the cross on his shoulder and all that. So he mocks him, and he's cursed to live out. He never dies. He walks the earth from then on. And some people say it's him. And I don't know. It's just, but I mean, you could go on and on and on and on. I just brought out the ones that with the most historical significance, but there's tons of stuff out there.
That's just nuts to me.
It is nuts. And I would think it was just absolute and complete BS. And I'm still not sure that I don't think it's just absolute and complete BS, except that all of these people, I mean, you're talking about the rich and famous, wealthy, educated people who are saying, hey, this guy was really here. And, you know, he was like the Countess d'Armand, who said, hey, this dude was, you know, she writes and says this guy was really here, and he was the advisor to Marie Antoinette, you know, and all these people that have seen him. And
he's an advisor to like all these kings and queens and counts and.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's in an episode of remember the Warehouse 13 series?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, back in the day.
Yeah, he's played by James Marsters in the TV series. Warehouse 13 is an immortal who used to ring with a gem from the Philosopher's Stone, used to revitalize plants and heal people to accumulate wealth throughout the ages. The ring was taken by Marie Antoinette and buried in the catacombs beneath Paris. In the series, in the show.
Yeah. Well, see, the whole Marie Antoinette thing, she was so obsessed with her youth and beauty and all that I could easily see her, you know, taking to Saint Germain, the Count Saint Germain, just because of that. You know, if he had the secret, she wanted it. You know,
in the BBC podcast, The Lovecraft Investigations, he's revealed to be the mortal guise of Nyarlathotep, which is a Lovecraftian, you know, an elder god. Also, the King in Yellow, or Hastur, as you would know from True Detective series season 1.
I didn't watch it.
This is some deep Lovecraftian stuff. This is my area. So anyway, interesting.
No, I thought this was a really interesting story and I just stumbled onto it, but and the one I stumbled onto first was actually the Jacques Saint Germain in New Orleans, and it tied in with some other stuff we had done for New Orleans. We were looking at
I was trying to look at that
or something.
I was looking at the location.
Who did it? The other show that we did, the other podcast he did,
John, for Mardi Gras.
Oh yeah, what was her name? That hateful, horrible woman.
Madame
LaLaurie. That's
LaLaurie.
it.
LaLaurie.
Madame
Mansion.
LaLaurie.
Yeah, the one where Nick Cage owned the house for a while.
Yeah. But I happened to see something connected, and I was like, oh, let me look at this. But I thought it was just really interesting because there's so many people that knew him.
Because the LaLaurie Mansion is also on Royal Street.
Oh, is it really?
It's 1140 Royal Street.
Yeah,
wow.
It is Royal Street, yeah.
Because when you said that, I went, wait a second.
Yeah, 701.
So this one's 1140.
So they were neighbors.
They were probably at the same time.
When was she there? When was she there?
Early 1800, like
1832 is when it
1832,
opened.
yeah.
So he would have been 100 years, 70 years later. Because he got there in the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, when she left, she left.
This says it constructed
Yeah.
in 1838, so.
Yeah, so
But he's been around since the 1600s, so chances are they may have lived down the street. Right.
That there's record of, you know, he's been
They
around
probably
since
lived there
then.
together. He
Is there-
probably went to her party.
You think there's a recipe online somewhere for that Philosopher's Stone stuff, or that powder you can dip lead in? And
There's other stories, and this one was so fantastical that I didn't even mention it, but there is somebody who has this dog, and Saint Germain takes this projection powder, this philosopher's stone, and this dog is dead. D-E-D, dead. Not moving, right?
D-E-D.
Yeah, D-E-D, dead. He dead. And he sprinkles this powder on this dog. The dog hops up and spasmodically, but jumps up and walks around a little bit, and then soon meets his demise once again. He falls over dead. But it kept him, or brought him back and kept him alive for a little bit. Just saying.
Interesting.
You know? But I mean, it's just a crazy story, and like I say, when we were talking about this earlier, I alluded to the fact that we're going to go down a rabbit hole tonight on this, because there's so much.
You need a timeline, like a visual timeline. It's hard to keep track.
Yeah, I put it in order of the time because we started truly in 1742 and we went up to 1983. So, but as I put them in, they're in line order.
So this man always looks the same.
Always looks the same. And like I say, there's only 2 known images of him. One is a wood carving print that was done based on a stolen photo. I'm sorry, not a photo. I apologize.
I don't think cameras were. This guy's wearing a powder wig.
I misspoke. So it was a stolen painting, and this guy, from memory, having seen it, did a wood carving from it. And so there's that. And then there's the picture with Blavatsky, Helena Blavatsky. She has an actual photograph with Lord Cthulhu. Cthulhu and something else. And no, not Cthulhu. I'm going to chunk something to you.
So this is the second work attributed to Saint Germain. Is the untitled 18th century manuscript in the shape of a triangle. I don't know how that works, but the 2 known copies of the triangular manuscript exist as Hogarth Manuscript 209 and 210. Both currently reside in the Manly Palmer Hall collection of alchemical manuscripts at the Getty Research Library, the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. Nick Koss decoded and translated this manuscript in 2011, and it was published as the Triangular Book of Saint Germain by Ouroboros Press in 2015. Unlike the first work, it mentions Saint Germain directly as its originator. The book describes a magical ritual by which one can perform the 2 most extraordinary feats that characterize the legend account of Saint Germain, namely procurement of great wealth and extension of life. So I wonder if Amazon has that.
I don't know. But it's interesting because I think of that.
Which one do you want?
The Triangular Book of Saint Germain.
Okay, I'm sorry. Continue, babe.
So I researched a small bit of way back in the day before podcasting and all that, but with Jack the Ripper, and some people, they think he might have been H.H. Holmes during the times when...
Yeah, but H.H. Holmes was executed. I mean...
Huh?
H.H. Holmes was arrested and executed in Illinois.
He was.
Yeah.
However, what about the time period that H.H. Holmes kind of disappeared?
Oh, you mean that the Ripper might have been H.H. Holmes? Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So there was a time period when H.H. Holmes disappeared, and they think, and it fits
he
with...
went to London.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they think it might have been...
But the way he killed people in Chicago was nothing like the Ripper murders.
No. But think again, if you're in an alleyway and you don't have a lot of time and you dispose of them...
They did take the time, though. Cutting out specific parts in such a... I
don't know how long that would take.
I like the whole...
Chicago gives him a lot more time to do what he does.
It was a member of the royal family.
It could have been that, who knows? But the thing is, that isn't the only time that happened. And there are other accounts of Ripper-style murders that happened throughout the ages. And almost as if it's the same guy doing it, every so many years. And matter of fact, if you watch The Night Stalker, Kolchak, you remember that show? Darren McGavin. He had one of the episodes was Jack the Ripper, and this guy he can tell that this guy, he tracks it back, and he looks, okay, well, he did it in London, but yeah, he did it here, and he did it here, and he did it here. It's the same guy, obviously, right? And he goes on to talk about how in the show he figures out what he's afraid of, and he was one of the guys got hung and it didn't kill him, and the only guy that they almost killed before that he was electrocuted. It was a really good show, but it's one of those Night Stalker Kolchak TV series back in the, I guess, late 70s, early 80s.
There's a movie that's a kind of time travel thing. It has to do with the Ripper.
I remember that.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I don't remember the name of it.
I don't either. Something in time.
But, this guy, it's like is he hopscotching through time? Is this total bullshit, all of it? Or, that I have a hard time with. How can it be total bullshit with all these accounts of this guy, And, or is he immortal?
Well, the only way to find out is to get a copy of this triangular book of Saint Germain.
Perform the ritual.
And see
and bring Cthulhu forward.
Just a procurement of great wealth and extension of life.
Yeah.
Well, and if Eliphas Levi mentions him, that gives a little credence to his ritual magic stuff in alchemy.
Yeah. That's what I say. Is the guy's it's pretty trippy.
Now, whether any of that is real or not,
right? But still, it's kind of trippy. Is it an alien pretending to be human?
Well, you've seen the
is it
pictures.
A shape-shifting reptilian or something?
You've seen the pictures. It look like they're talking. There's that guy who keeps appearing in pictures throughout time.
Yeah. It's just maybe that's
talking on a cell phone in a picture from the 1920s.
Why would you do that though? There's not in the 1920s.
You wouldn't get any signal, exactly.
It's not gonna be
no signal.
You can't even walk inside and hook up on the Wi-Fi.
No, there's nothing.
But anyway, so what do you think, John? Is it weird? I think it's kind of weird.
It's weird, but I think there's also some bullshit involved that probably propagated by this fella himself.
I think so too. He was known to be a con
growing
man, charlatan.
Yeah.
He was known to be a charlatan, and he had a lot of different titles, so who knows? Alyssa, what do you think?
I was reading about this book of alchemy.
Where can we get this triangular book?
You can't get the triangular one. That one you cannot, but you can get...
You can't get the translated copy from 2015 by Ouroboros Press?
No. All of the actual triangular ones are not available. However, you can get Saint Germain on alchemy formulas for self-transformation. And I was reading the reviews on it, and apparently it's there's from this person named D'Artagnan Pulsant.
D'Artagnan. He was one of the musketeers.
It just says it's not just about alchemy, but it points out how Saint Germain was a fan and follower of Jesus Christ. A very religious interpretation indeed, and a worthy addition to even the deepest Christian's library. This book will open your eyes. It deals with those who swore they had seen and experienced the physical presence of Saint Germain from around 1400 all the way through the 1930s.
See? 1400s.
Even though the historians limit his lifespan to about 72 years in the 1400s, I was most impressed when it specifically made note that Saint Germain did not die but ascended, and that he will return when necessary to help mankind during their gravest hours of need.
It's a trip, man. There's so many stories about this guy,
Yeah, it says that Saint Germain does get into alchemy in this book, but he's careful to explain that the true alchemist must be pure of mind and body, and that in order to achieve alchemy, one must implore not only the third dimension, but also the fourth. So it sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
I still think he's a vampire.
I think he's a vampire.
So,
especially with his ties to Transylvania.
Yeah.
You know, I think I'm going with vampire. John, you think it's some of it's legit, some of it's bullshit, some of it's been blown out of proportion.
I think, it's a game of telephone.
Right.
So, handbound black leather editions of the Triangle Book of St. Germain are now being offered for sale at Ouroboros Press, certainly one of the most unique of occult manuscripts. The Triangular Book of St. Germain contains a ritual to produce a special talisman under the ritual conditions of an eclipse, which we just missed.
Oh,
Damn.
Readers may already know for that the significant celestial event will be taking place August 21st. I don't know how old this is. Beginning on the Oregon coast. Okay, so you can order this black triangular.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, was that Amazon?
No.
What to say? I didn't think it was Amazon.
No, you have to
go through.
You have to contact Ouroboros Press because they make all kinds of. This is what they do. Apparently,
John, what did you drink tonight? What was it?
Tequila pants.
Tequila pantalones. Matthew McConaughey. What did you drink, babe?
G4.
G4. And
G4.
I finished off my very small amount of tequila ocho. This is really good too.
$370.
Oh my god! No,
Here's a copy right here. $370 in red leather.
All right, focus. Bottles in the hand.
Tequila Ocho, G4, pantalones,
and tequila pants.
He didn't pick a numbered tequila like we did.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Oh, I didn't. There aren't any other number. Well, there's
1800.
Tres Caballos.
Yeah.
Garbage. There was 1800. But yes, Saint Germain, vampire, faux show.
I go with vampire.
Blade.
I don't think it was Blade. Y'all have a good night.
Nighty night.
Bye.
So,
you don't think it was Blade? Go ahead.
It's not easy to find.
No, it's not.
And it's expensive.
Well, Amazon doesn't even show me what it used to be because apparently it used to be available. It is no longer available.
This is a whole preserved in Asia.